Hello, everyone, and welcome to another round commentary for the 125th edition of the US Open. I'm WGM Sabina Foisor, your host for another round chess. Hopefully, some exciting chess will be brought today. Yesterday, we had some topsy-turvy games, some draws, but today it's the final round of the Invitationals, and I cannot wait to see what the players are ready to bring for trying to win the competition. Before we get into the action, I wanted to take a moment and let you know that things are starting to happen. More events are starting to happen in Madison, Wisconsin. And if you happen to be on site, don't miss the opportunity to check out the full schedule so that you are staying up to date with various other side events that you can join and compete in, or maybe if there's a particular committee meeting that you want to join, that is something you want to be on the look for. Right now, for example, there are a few meetings happening on site. US Chess Trust and legal rating systems demonstration are happening. And then 1 hour later at 11 a.m. local time, the rules committee and nominating committees are meeting. There's a quad at 12 p.m. Then there's a National State Invitationals Committee, Clubs Committee starting at 1. There are usually kind of two meetings starting around the same time, and they're in rooms one next to another. So if you happen to be on site, I think it might be a great opportunity to go see what they've been working on for the entire year. Maybe you have suggestions. Maybe you're enjoying something that they do and you want to let them know about it. So don't miss the opportunity to do so. I also wanted to take a moment and remind everyone that tomorrow I will be doing a full recap of what's been happening for the entire US Open, because as you know, I've been covering the Invitationals so far, the games from the Invitationals, and kind of neglected a bit to look at the US Open games, but I'll be doing so tomorrow morning, similar to today, and then I'll be covering the final 3 rounds. All right, before we get into the action for today's round, and I'll let you know even more information about what's going on with a few other events happening in Wisconsin, I think it is time for a recap. So today's recap is presented to you by by me. It was definitely a round I wasn't quite expecting. Yesterday, a few draws in the top boards of the Irwin, but we had quite a nice decisive a game that happened on board 4, and I want to start with that one. That was played between FIDE Master Gregory Markzon and Valery Kosoki. And it started as a Sicilian, and I found it interesting because the players kind of got out of main theory early on. So although Black has attempted to play the Najdorf, White decided to play one of the lines that maybe is not the most topical one, which is f4. Black here has various ways to respond. I mean, I think e5 is probably one of the top ones, but g6 could also be played if you want to transpose to something maybe a little bit less known and get into a dragon kind of setup. Well, in this position, Black ended up surprising us all by making this move b5. This move is premature because it actually weakens this diagonal, but also does not do anything in order to try to develop the pieces, and White could definitely go for the move e5, which he actually did in the game. Pawn takes, and now knight to g4. b4 could have probably been played, but after knight a4, white still maintains a bit of advantage because they have more pieces developed and they are going to be faster with the castling. But in this position, black made this mistake, knight g4, and this is the kind of mistake that's quite typical for Sicilians because you know, the bishop protects the knight, the queen attacks the knight. So if you find a way for the bishop not to protect the knight anymore, we're going to win it. So how do we do that? Well, in an easy fashion, knight takes b5. So now, if you recapture with the pawn, we get bishop takes b5 check, and regardless of which piece you're putting in front, this bishop is still protected by the knight. So white can simply grab the knight, similar to a tactical idea that we usually encounter in the dragon. And this would have sealed the deal. Obviously, after knight takes b5, black is not necessarily forced to recapture, but what else are they going to do here because their knight is under attack? They can't certainly consider to recapture, but then probably bishop f4 comes out with tempo. This bishop will be developed, queen gets developed as well. We need to make sure we retreat with the knight in c3, and white enjoys a very pleasant position. After bishop f4, g5 was played. Black is playing in the style of the initiative, trying to grab the pawn in e5. White did not want to give him that opportunity, so he played bishop g3, knight e3. I really love this move because, first of all, it escapes the threat. There's no more ideas with knight takes b5, and also, it's a move with tempo. We always want to try to make moves with tempo, specifically in positions where we're struggling with the development. White played queen e2. I believe queen f3 is a slightly better option because it keeps the queen a bit more active, keeps the pressure in a8 as well, attacks the knight, and I think it would have given white a slightly more comfortable position. Obviously not this because here, but we would play first bishop d3, and then we can go bishop f2, get rid of the knight, and we can castle, and white has a fine position. Queen e2 was played instead. Black took bishop f2, and black played the move b4. Everything seems relatively natural so far, and now after white captured, queen takes e5, knight a4. Black played bishop g4, a nice kind of tactical idea to try to simplify the position a bit more. White avoided that simplification, however, with queen f2, and it is in this position that black made an error. He played the move e6. Now, bishop g7 seems slightly more natural. Black really needs to castle, and there's no time to waste with another pawn. As soon as e6 was played, white chased his bishop away, bishop f5. Had black played bishop h5, I'm sure g4 would have been played with a similar idea to develop the bishop in g2. The next move, or maybe we can even castle because now there's no bishop that stops white from doing so. And I think long castle is definitely the right kind of approach for white, bringing the king to safety and getting ready to take the initiative against black's king in the center. After bishop f5, white should have definitely castled immediately. He played g4, which still allowed some complications after bishop takes c2, because now if we recapture, queen takes e3. White played bishop g2, and it's actually kind of funny. Rook a7 is perfectly fine for black. He should have played it, and he would have enjoyed natural position. But after bishop takes a4, short castle. I guess white wanted to castle short after all, and in this position white's threatening bishop d4, skewering the queen and the rook. Queen takes f7, and the rook in a8 is hanging as well. It's really difficult to find a move to save the game, but definitely the pawn in f7 needs to be somehow protected, and after black touch the bishop, potentially by mistake or not, I'm not quite sure, he ended up resigning after queen f7 and bishop e6. You may ask, okay, what other choice did he have? Because a move like f6 is not ideal. I know it's not ideal, but it might be the way to go. I think he just felt that bishop d6 is actually threatening mate, and that's why he probably played it. But yeah, something like this may have kept black in the game just a bit longer. So definitely one of those games that we want to be mindful about. It was a bit both players didn't quite respect the principles for a while, but it was in the end black that respected the principles a bit less, did not complete development, kept the king in the center, and that was the reason to its demise. Going on to the next game that I wanted to go over, specifically just like final points, basically, was this game that was played between international master Ekenbat Shuren and Mark Hoshor. This was board 5 in the Irwin section. The players actually have started as some kind of queen pawn endgame, but then it transposed to a position that looks like a Dutch, a Leningrad Dutch to be more exact. And basically in these types of positions, white has the ability to play e4 at some point. Sometimes they play c5 too, but they don't want black to respond with d5. This pawn is weak, so white just needs to find its way to get things going in the position. After black's response, rook to d8, white decided to go knight d5. I really like this idea. Obviously, if you capture, pawn takes, and white's regaining the piece, and then the pawn in b7 will be hanging. So black responded bishop takes, pawn takes, and what I want to show is this resulting position, after which black felt that he had to focus on his queen side, because that is the side of the board where he has the majority. But sometimes pawn structure can be misleading, and you need to make sure you are careful about the threats first before considering to do other things that would leave your king in danger, for example. So here black needs to try to find some way to get some defensive ideas. Maybe rook f8, bring this rook back, knight f5, retreat to the bishop, maybe bring the queen over. Make sure his king is somewhat safe, because with the bishop in e4, black will certainly have to face pressure on the pawn in g6. There's no f pawn left to protect g6, and black may get in trouble. And I really loved how white was able to outplay his opponent from here. He played h4, and after this, queen to d3, getting ready for some sacrifices after pushing the pawn. Now also, of course, this pawn is attacked. Queen b6 was played. h5, black decided to defend, and I just want you to see the natural continuation of the attack that white was able to deliver here. Rook h1 attacking h7, and now for the final finish, bishop takes h7. After the knight recapture to check, and a rook takes h7, and it is game over after bishop g7. I love the final move of the game. Well, almost final. Now obviously white wants to play bishop h6, but the bishop is bothering, so rook to c3. Look at the beauty of this move, just hanging the rook, but once you take it, we will have bishop h6 followed by queen g7 mate, and black resigned. I think that was certainly a beautiful way to finish the game. An interesting moment arose in a highly fought game between two of the top players in the Denker, and that was international masters Bach and Go and Evan Park. Bach is certainly taking advantage of his opponent's badly placed rook, and was able to deliver a beautiful, very technical endgame, where white seemed to be cruising through to victory without giving black any kind of escape. So the rook in b4 is certainly misplaced. Black might have being uncomfortable with the bishop in b5, but as soon as the bishop retreated, the rook got stuck in b4. Yes, black has made 2 moves with tempo, but was that sufficient? I would dare to say no, because now after bishop b2, that rook in b4 is about to be trapped with bishop a3, so you need to move the knight again. And in the past 2 moves, what did we notice? White has been able to improve the position of their bishop. So this bishop retreated to b2, this one to e2, and with them retreating on those 2 squares, actually, and now white is ready to regroup and put pressure on d5. Black didn't really do anything the past 3 moves in order to be able to find some kind of defense to the pawn, and probably 96 had to be played instead of 94, and definitely not rook b4 earlier. But check out how Bach is able to outplay his opponent. First of all, he wins the pawn, and then after rook takes, he needs to continue improving his pieces. What's the worst place piece, you ask? The knight in h3. So it's time to bring it into play. When you see such games where someone seems to just naturally make moves while the other is struggling to find defenses, you can clearly tell something went wrong, and you can certainly see like a good shape of the person, like getting ready to really outclass their opponent. Now after rook d6, what I loved about the next move is that white decided to give up the bishop. Yes, indeed, we're giving up the bishop because now after pawn takes, check, we can trade a pair of rooks, because we get into an endgame where our knight is definitely super superior to the bishop in e7. In addition to that, black has a terrible pawn structure and they're down a pawn. So from here on, white was able to simply outplay his opponent. He does not have any weaknesses in the position and kept everything under wraps. And finally, when it was time, of course, rook takes a2 would fall to rook c7. So he won 1 more pawn, and now all he has to do is find a way to trade black's rook, which has stayed trapped in b2. He was able to do so quite easily, and from here on, it was just a matter of time until it was able to convert. So definitely brilliantly played game by Bach, and he's the leader now of the Denker. Now this was the game of the round to me. I gotta say, I was amazingly impressed with the way International Master Liam Putnam has played his game. Probably, I presume it was home prep or something, because this was just, it was just brilliantly played, and he sacrificed the queen at some point. So when you sacrifice the queen, you either really have some kind of preparation, home preparation, or you're simply really brilliant. I don't know. The game started as a knight or Sicilian with one of the main lines, bishop g5 and knight d7. Typically, the most topical line here is e6 for black, but it seems that black decided to choose maybe less played line, knight d7, bishop c4, queen b6, bishop e3, of course, covering the pawn in b2. And the next moves will not surprise you in any way. They're typical moves of development for both sides. White gave up the bishop in order to be able to castle long, avoid any kind of issues of getting their bishop chased away, and now he's getting ready to take advantage of black's king in the center. After bishop d7, I love this move, knight f5, sacking the knight, but we're ready for some material gains, and here I think probably knight b3 seems to be maybe something that black can do first and then castle. In the game, black castled first, but eventually in the game he did capture in b3, so it was kind of like move order change. And what's interesting about this line is that actually white's queen kind of gets trapped here, and And well, guess what? White does not mind it. The fact that the queen is trapped, no, we do not mind it. At least Liam doesn't. So rook f1, queen e3 check, king b1, and bishop e5. Now, of course, black attacks the queen, and it seems that you have to, simplify the position a bit. Your rook is also attacked, you're in trouble. But no, this was definitely, I'm sure, all planned. White goes immediately for knight takes b5, sacking the queen for active rook and knight, and for the queen, basically, white has a rook, a knight, and a pawn. So if we were to actually judge the material imbalance, it's not really an imbalance, right? It's 9 for 9, so we are all safe here from that standpoint. But it does feel a bit scary, I guess, for white, but not for Liam. The rook does still have pressure. We're threatening rook takes there, and actually white doesn't quite have weaknesses. This may be one, but it's well protected by the knight. And now all white has to do is just find a way for this rook to get into play, to be able to get coordinated with the other rook and the knight. And he's able to do so. After rook d8, king a2, nice prophylactic idea to avoid all checks on the back rank once white's rook is going to be brought into play. And it's really hard to find the best move for black. Rook d4 was played, and I think I checked with the engine as I was analyzing yesterday, and the best move for black is king a8, but good luck finding that move. Obviously, the idea is not to allow white to capture that pawn with check, and then basically, because if you take it without check, then there's rook takes d6, so that's basically the idea of king a8. But okay, white can still continue improving in this position, and it's just lots of analysis that possibly he had them from home or not. But what I love about it is that as soon as rook d4 is played, it seems that white just misplayed it because this pawn is not protected and black can just take it. But that is in fact a mistake, because these three pieces will be able to work together to actually take advantage of black's king that stays on somewhat of a mating net. And despite all of these pieces being on a dark square, there's no way for black to actually be able to fork them. Queen c5 won't do anything. Rook takes a6 is an option. So anyways, look at the finish of this game. Knight c4, he's not in a rush to go rook b7, though there could be some kind of so now, like, we want knight c4, we got the rook covered, we want to play rook a4, rook takes a6 mate, and now you need to find the defense. So black goes queen g1, so now obviously if you do that, we'll be happy we survived. But of course Liam did not do that. He grabbed another pawn, and the more the game progresses, the more you start really enjoying having a rook and a knight with the abilities of mating the opponent. And now the follow through of how the mate happened is as follows: check, knight b5. I love the regrouping of the knight all over the place, and finally once it found its position, king b6 check. I think knight here was finishing the game one move earlier, but rook c6 was played, and after king a5, rook e5, and the score sheets were signed. So my favorite game so far of the tournament, if I weren't, or if you weren't a Liam Putnam's fan until this moment, I feel that I may have convinced you to be one, because he's beautifully delivered this possibly home prep, but then you still have to convert. I don't think he had everything analyzed, so well done, Liam, and we'll have to see how he finishes off the Invitationals. Moving on to another game that I actually enjoyed. I mean, quite a lot of them were very interesting, I gotta say. We had a couple of moments that were a bit unexpected. For example, in this game between Irene Zhao Fei and Yang Yang Shen, my heart broke here to see the blunder the black made. So this was board 3 in the Haring tournament of champions for girls, and black, after white captured this pawn in h3, black rushed to equalize the material. But unfortunately, this is a blunder, because after rook d3, the rooks get traded and it is just game over. This pawn is too far away. By the time you go grab it, white will take this and then take this, and it is game over. So what did black have to do in order to save the game? Well, simply play king d5, put additional pressure, wanting to take it with the king. King c3, obviously not d3 to allow the capturing of the pawn with the rook. And now black can simply just sit and wait, because even if you check the king, in order for you to progress, you'll have to push the h pawn. Once you do, there will be checks pushing the king back, and black will be able to get this pawn back. I mean, you have to have a bit of patience. It's not easy, but that could be one way, for example, to try to draw. If you want to avoid the checks, you can simply play the move rook f5. That way there's no checks. You can just sit with the rook on the 5th rank. Anytime king d3 is played, you can certainly put your rook on the 4th rank, or you can try e5. But yeah, that was definitely kind of a tough miss by black, and then the game was over. I certainly have to show you this next board that was really amazing, because how often do you get to see this kind of tactical idea. This is a really nice position for white, resulting from an Alpine Sicilian, and black does not have a knight in f6 or an f8, as a matter of fact. So black needs to make sure they play g6 somehow to cover h7. If you don't, like black did here, black played the move bishop f8, and you can definitely, hopefully, find the right continuation for white. Women's candidate master Ismailova Khanim certainly did, and it's one of those beautiful tactical ideas that everyone must know. The first tactical idea that ever existed in chess, and that is the Greek gift. Bishop takes h7. Obviously, if king recaptures, knight g5 followed by queen h5, or sometimes we also mate by putting the queen on the diagonal and bringing it to h7. So now after king h8, knight g5, h5, white went on to win and eventually delivered a checkmate, as she brought black's king into her territory. King g2 followed by rook h1, and it was game over. So certainly, a nice kind of finish to see in such a tournament. Lastly, I believe the last game that I want to emphasize on, that I feel was one that was quite important for the standings, was the one that took place between FIDE Master Ted Wang and FIDE Master Ling Shizhu. So in this particular position, after black played the move queen to g5, white is enjoying a slightly better position with a further away passed pawn. But there's more to the position than the eye show at first sight, because basically here, like, there are a few tactical ideas that are present, and if you miss it, then you miss your chance to convert. And Ted, it was leading the competition. He's still leading with 4.5, but he could potentially have converted this game and been on 5 out of 5, 1 point ahead of the field, had he found this move h4. Once we play h4, we're chasing this queen away. Obviously, there's some scary situations with knight f4, but as long as you're making sure nothing is concrete, you can play h4. The check is not going to bother you. You can simply move the king. The knight will be hanging, the queen is hanging, and no matter where the queen goes, the knight will be captured, and there won't be any perpetual or anything for black. This knight in c6 is actually a beast. and white would be simply cruising through. Of course, you go h4. Don't fall for this move. Queen takes d5. It looks like a cute tactic if they recapture, because then we gotta check queen. But listen, we're not playing hope chess. Black actually has the brilliant knight f4 check, and it is you who's going to lose material. But if we do go for h4, no matter where the queen goes, white can simply capture the pawn in the center and then eventually support this pawn. It's not really over yet, but you know, with a pass pawn, extra pawn, bad knight on the rim, white is certainly enjoying a much more pleasant position. So that was my recap.